Hello everyone, Channel Player Wicked here, and we're going to do a Garen guide. Alright guys, let's get into the runes. On Garen you want to go Conqueror. It works so amazing with the E that it just becomes absolutely overpowered on him. There's nothing else you'd ever want on him. Second, you're going for Triumph, because who doesn't like healing after you kill your opponents? The third one, you go Tenacity, because Tenacity works on Garen really well because he doesn't rely on attack speed, and he doesn't benefit much from lifesteal from Bloodline. So Tenacity is the one to go, it's amazing on him, and it helps from being locked down, which you don't want to be. The last one, you're going for Last Stand, because often you're going to be taking close fights with Garen, and then you will win out by using your ultimate. You need Last Stand to up your damage a tiny bit in all those close fights. In the second tree, we are going for Nimbus Cloak, because Garen is a guy who wants to run down his opponents. When you flash after them, you can run a little bit faster, and then hopefully you can gather the kill up with the extra movement speed from Nimbus Cloak. And the second one, you're going for Transcendence, because who doesn't want to click ultimate on Garen? It feels good, it's awesome, and it does a ton of damage. That is what you want to do. Therefore, Transcendence lowers your cooldown on all abilities by 10% once you're level 10, and that means you get a lot more time where you can kill your opponents. Now the last thing about runes, we're going to talk about the small ones. You need double attack damage, because again, you don't need attack speed. Cooldown isn't that necessary for you. And then the second one, you want to have tons of damage, so you're also going for damage in that one. And then the third one, you just apply that to whatever you're playing against. If you're playing against AD, which you mostly will be, then you're going to take armor. And if you're playing against magic damage, you will take the magic resist. Alright, now let's get into the item build. So on Garen, you mostly want to start with Trinity Force, because it's tons of damage. Who doesn't need that? On a serious note, it's just the best item they can get in most situations. However, there are a few situations where you want to start with Black Cleaver, because you're against a mega tank where you need to shred his armor. But most of the time, go with the Trinity Force first. In the second item, however, you do want to go for Black Cleaver, because now you want to shred people and you want the cooldown reduction. You're going to have 40% after getting both of those items, and then you can start shredding. Then we going down to the third item. You want to go for Deadman's Plate, because Garen is all about movement speed. You need to be able to catch your opponents, and Garen doesn't have any gap closers, therefore he relies only on movement speed. Deadman's Plate provides that. It gives you a little bit of extra damage. Get it and run people down. It's going to feel awesome. In the fourth item, you can go for either Steerage Gauge, then you have Death Stance, or you could go for Spirit Recess, depending on what you need. There's also a few situations where you might want to go for Thornmail, but mostly just go for the other ones and you should be good to go. Alright boys, it's time to talk a little bit about Garen's abilities. His passive is his most important ability in my opinion during the laning phase. It restores 1.5 to 10.1% based on level of his maximum of health every 5 seconds, which means you're going to restore a lot of health when you're not taking damage. It's amazing if you're pushing in the opponent and you can sit back and chill for a bit. Generally, if you push really fast, you get to chill for 4 procs of your passive, which is a lot of health. Now, if you're getting pushed in, you won't be able to proc it that much, so you need to try and kind of play around this ability. Now, next up we have Garen's Q, Decisive Strike. It cleanses him of all slows and gives you movement speed, so it's perfect when you're getting slowed, you want to run faster and hit people, use your Q, run up to them, and smack them hard. Now another thing to note about the Q is it also silences the opponent for 1.5 seconds after hitting them, which is obviously really valuable, especially against mages and other champions, because now you can potentially one-shot them before they get an ability off. Now the last thing you want to know about the Q is that it's also an auto attack reset. So if you're auto attacking, then you use Q right after and it's going to reset, and your DPS is going to increase by optimizing your attack animations. Now next up we got Garen's W, Courage. Courage is amazing. It gives you a little bit more armor and mag resist every single time you kill an enemy, for example minions. It goes up to a maximum of 30 bonus resistance at 120 units. After reaching maximum stacks, you're also going to get bonus armor by 10% and bonus mag resist by 10%, which is obviously huge, which is why Garen is such an amazing tank. Now that was the ability's passive part, but there's also an active part. In the active part, when you activate the ability, Garen reduces incoming damage by 30% for a few seconds, between 2 to 5 seconds depending on level. And then for the first 0.75 seconds, you also gain a shield, and you have 60% tenacity, which is why if you use this ability properly, it's really hard to lock Garen down, because tenacity gets you out of CC much faster. Now we're getting to the exciting part, Judgment, Garen Spin to Win. It's a famous ability. When you use it, you become ghosted, which basically means you can run straight through minions and they're not going to block you anymore. That's obviously awesome for chasing down opponents, and you can actually play around that, trying to force the opponent to get blocked by the minions, and then you just run him down, so he's going to be slowed down while you run straight through them. Now Judgment scales with attack speed, so the more attack speed you have, the more you're going to spin. Also, Judgment can crit for 33% bonus damage. Obviously, if you have Infinity Edge, it's going to be increased by another 25%, but that's not an item you want to buy, so we don't actually care too much about that. Now, another little thing to know about his Judgment ability is damage is increased by 50% against non-epic monsters, which is obviously great when you want to kill those. The last things to know is the nearest enemy is dealt 25% bonus damage per spin. Also, another thing to note is if you hit a person 6 times, their armor is reduced by 25%, which is amazing in a 1v1 situation where you want to kill somebody, or in a team fight where you want your AD carry to kill somebody, or if you have an AD carry team, for example, you have a Zed mid, and an AD carry bot, and an AD carry jungle, well, now you can reduce people's armor, so try and do that on tanks, and see them will get shredded much faster. Now for Garen's last ability, but also his strongest one, Garen jump up into the air and smashes the enemy all the way to the enemy nexus because they're dying most of the time. If you use this and they don't die, well, you messed up. It does a ton of true damage, 150 level 1 up to 450 at max level, plus it deals 20 to 30% of the target's missing health. That's a huge amount of damage. This is obviously a finishing move and you want to use this carefully, make sure you kill them. And also one thing you want to do if you want to play Garen is watch a few videos on him, see how much damage his ultimate actually does, so you ensure that when you use it, you kill people, because you don't want to fail it. Alright, it's time to get into Garen's skill order. Mostly you want to start with either Q or E level 1. Most people seem to do Q, but E is also pretty good depending on how strong you are. If you think you're much stronger than the opponent, just go E. Then level 3, you're obviously going to go W, and you have your complete 1 to 3 ability set. Now for the abilities you max, you're going to be maxing E for the first one, that's the most important ability. Then afterwards you want to max Q, and last you want to max W. W is not that important, it doesn't scale that well. And the reason for that is because it's already so strong at level 1, so you don't really need to level it up because it's powerful enough already.